Hello and welcome to World 360, where we talk about the three most important global affairs of the week. First, let's start with the UK Prime Minister's visit to India. So, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer arrived in India's financial capital, Mumbai, as he began his first official 2-day visit on Wednesday morning. Starmer is accompanied by the largest trade delegation from the UK ever. He is set to meet PM Modi on Thursday. In an next post, PM Modi welcomed Starmer on his historic first visit to India and wrote that he is looking forward to their meeting for advancing their shared vision of a stronger, mutually prosperous future. Starmer's visit is set to focus on expanding economic and defense ties between the two nations, particularly in the sector of trade and investment. In their meeting, both leaders are expected to address the Global FinTech Summit in Mumbai, hold wide ranging talks, and assess various sectors pertaining to the India UK strategic partnership like technology and innovation, defense and security, climate and energy, trade and investment. Starmer's delegation consists of 125 of the UK's most prominent business leaders, university vice chancellors, and entrepreneurs. Executives of mega corps like British Telecom, Rolls-Royce, London Stock Exchange, and British Airways are also part of it. As he kicked off his visit, the UK PM said on Wednesday, referring to the free trade agreement signed between India and the UK, that the opportunities waiting to be seized under the India UK FTA are unparalleled. He added that it's not just a piece of paper, it's a launch pad for growth. Earlier in July, during PM Modi's visit to London, both nations secured the landmark trade deal, the FTA, which brought together the world's fifth and sixth largest economies and allowed for lower tariffs on exports of British goods like textiles, whiskey, and cars to India. We signed a major trade deal with India in July, the best secured by any country, but the story doesn't stop there, Keir Starmer said. Furthermore, India is one of the leading global whiskey markets and the world's largest consumer of whiskey by volume. With this July deal, tariffs on whiskey and gin will be halved from 150% to 75% and will fall to 40% by the 10th year of the deal. Starmer also broke his silence on the visa deal with India. Speaking to the reporters before he arrived in the country, he said that the UK will not relax visa rules for India. He added that there were no plans to open up more visa routes to Indian workers or students. He said that the issue is not about visas, it's about business to business engagement and investment and jobs and prosperity coming into the United Kingdom. Now, let's talk about the US Special Envoy's visit to Egypt for ceasefire negotiations. On Wednesday, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and US President Donald Trump's son in law, Jared Kushner, joined the Gaza peace plan talks to reiterate President Donald Trump's stance on newly revived peace negotiations between Hamas and Israel. The US delegation led by Witkoff arrived in Egypt today and will be greeted by Israel's chief negotiator and Qatar's prime minister. As per Axios report on Tuesday, Trump met with his national security team to assess the status of the Gaza negotiations before Witkoff and Kushner departed for Egypt. These ceasefire talks followed Trump's announcement of a 20-point plan to end the war in Gaza that was accepted in its broad outlines by Benjamin Netanyahu. Egypt has been hosting rigorous talks between Israeli and Hamas negotiators at the Egyptian Red Sea city of Sharm el Sheikh. The talks are continuing for the third day today. The past 2 days of discussions ended without any concrete solution. According to the officials, talks focused on scheduling the release of Israeli hostages and withdrawal maps for Israeli forces. Earlier, Qatar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that the mediators, Qatar, Egypt, and Turkey, were staying flexible and developing ideas as the ceasefire talks progressed. Furthermore, senior Hamas official Fauzi Barhoum, at the end of the 2 days of negotiation talks, said that the group's negotiators are seeking an end to the war and complete withdrawal of the occupation army from Gaza. However, Israel doesn't agree to full withdrawal. US President Trump and Israel PM Netanyahu said Hamas will have no role in Gaza's future. Meanwhile, Trump's plan suggests that Palestinian technocrats or professionals not linked to any political group would manage daily affairs in Gaza. They would work under an international temporary governing body called the Board of Peace, which Trump and former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair would oversee. Now let's come to Chicago, where on Tuesday, hundreds of Texas National Guard soldiers gathered at an army facility amid US President Donald Trump's threat to invoke anti-insurrection law. A federal judge has temporarily stopped National Guard troops from being sent to Portland, Oregon. However, another judge has allowed their deployment to continue in Chicago, where federal agents are conducting a major operation against illegal immigration. So on Monday, Trump once again threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act if the courts, state, and local officials delay his plan to deploy the National Guard. Let's understand what this act is. It is a US federal law that entitles the president to deploy the military nationally to conduct civilian law enforcement activities under certain circumstances, like quashing domestic uprisings. This act was last used during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Trump was talking about his efforts to federalize the troops and stifle the crime rate in Democrat run cities when he was asked under what conditions he would consider the rarely used 19th century law. Trump said, and I quote, "If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe." Normally, US federal troops cannot be used for civilian law enforcement, such as policing or arresting citizens, except during special emergencies. But this law lets them impose domestic law enforcement with activities like arrests and searches, which they are usually not permitted to do. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office that the law has been used before. He argued that troops are needed to protect federal buildings and employees while helping in the broader effort to reduce crime. That's all for today. I'm Varnika Dhawan. Thank you for watching The Print.